All right, so here we are in Australia for an interesting weekend. We got our ratings updated, looking pretty good. We're gonna try to shoot for mid-70s if we can when we get to F1, but we're gonna be coming around this final corner, getting the DRS pretty early as possible. So we're coming across the line. That's gonna be a 131.9, good enough for P6 right now, but we're gonna make a few more runs. Run number 2, we're back in P17. We're up about a half second or so. Lose a little bit of time coming through these corners. Sun is setting. Trying to put the power down as early as possible without the back end coming out, as we lost about 2-3 tenths or so. So 131.7, so 2 tenths improvement up for P12, and we're moving on to our final run. We are behind a little bit, but we're looking to see what improvement we can make through these final few corners. About 1.5 tenths up through that final corner, about 0.03 of a second, almost slamming into the wall. And that's only 0.03 of a second or so improvement, so we're still sitting in P13.
Goodbye for now then, but we really are just getting started. Make sure you join us again for Lights Out tomorrow. So today, the sprint race, no pit stops, just full on pace. It's all about speed, daring, and sheer driving skill. What, I wonder, is in store for us today? It's a new addition to the Formula 2 calendar. Albert Park has been an iconic F1 circuit for years. Recently remodeled to encourage tighter racing on track, it is 3.28 miles, 14 turns instead of the original 16. In the commentary box, I'm Alex Shakes. Alex Brundle is alongside me. And now, we've had sprints for years in Formula 2, but with a shorter race, how does that change your driving style?
We have seen stops before at the end of the sprint race, jumping onto that softer compound of tyre and having at it for the final few laps of the race. Indeed, we've seen sprint races won like that. So anything can happen out there. Don't send the pit crew home just yet.
Today's sprint looks promising. And although we've been lucky with the weather so far this season, we might not be so fortunate tomorrow. Let's aim for a strong finish in the points today.
All right, so getting right to the 5 red lights for the sprint today here in Australia. First time around, off to an okay start on the mediums. We see, I believe that is Beauchamp. Benavides is on the right, 3 wide coming into turn 1. Another 3 wide ahead of us. And we're trying to push for P11. So we're side by side with Behrman coming through, I believe, turn 2, coming through sector 1. And a very tricky braking zone here for me. Hasn't been that difficult in the last few years, but it definitely has last year and this year. Especially with the high-speed section coming through the end of Sector 1. P11 right now, Behrman behind, Beauchamp ahead. We try to make a move on him, but not quite. So, filing in P11 through this fast section of the track. And the back end is coming out a little bit. This, the sprint and feature race were before, well, the sprint was before the handling update, but the feature race wasn't, so it was right on the crossover for that update as we are editing and doing the commentary for this video. And we're already over halfway through lap 1, only about 4 tenths back behind Beauchamp. Feeling pretty good on these medium tires. Australia is not a stranger to us. I love this track, and pretty excited for this track to be number 1 on the calendar in coming years, in 2025, I believe. As we're coming around the start-finish line for the end of lap 1 and sitting in P11. So that's 2 positions gained so far. As we're looking to break late and try to make a move on Beauchamp. DRS won't be active for another lap or so. So we have that momentum. We are within well within tow, so we're gonna brake late on the inside of Beauchamp and almost come in contact there. I checked my tires afterwards, and there is no additional tire wear there, so it's gonna be P10 on lap 2 coming into sector 2. Next little bit of action is going to be lap 4 is when we're finally able to catch up to Ruvel. I believe that's Vesti up ahead with a lockup as we scrape the wall. The rear left had a little bit of tire scraped off, so that is something to definitely keep out for the remainder of the race as our back end steps out a little bit. DRS active for the second lap now here on lap 4, pushing the limits of this car. Track limits are pretty forgiving on this track. We haven't gotten a warning yet. You see us crossing the line, but we didn't get a warning there. But you can see Beauchamp 1.9 seconds behind us there, back in P11, as we're pushing to get within the top 8 for points for the sprint race. And we're going to be pushing Daruva along. We're going to be aiming for a late break into this corner through sector 3. We have the inside. We make that move on Daruva up in a P9. Poor Chair is up next. We're going to see if we can try to get him on the main straight as we're coming through. Brake late on the outside. Keep our momentum going and trying as hard as we can. Back in wants to step out a little bit as we're putting the power down carefully. Miney, Benavides, swapping positions. Moving on to lap 6 now, halfway through this race. Poor Chair up ahead of us. Bessie up there in P7. DRS open, we're right up in the gearbox. And yet again, we're going to try to look for a late move on the inside. Not quite. We back off a little bit through the S's here in sector 2. For the high-speed chicane, because I haven't been on this track for a while. So there's a lockup from Poor Chair, losing 2 positions on myself and Daruva. Now we're up into P8, lap 6 of 12. Vesti up ahead is the next to go after, as we're late on the brakes there, going wide a little bit, as we're starting lap 7. Daruva close behind with those few mistakes, so we're going to have to try to hold him off as we're holding on to the last points position. Lap 8 of 12 now. We're up close to Vesti, trying to make a move here. Moving through sector 1 to sector 2 very well. Up into the gearbox, less than 2/10. And looking to make a move on the right side of Vesti as DRS opens. We're both going to have it, I believe. We're pretty much evenly matched here going through sector 2, but we do make the move on that left-hander up into P7. See no lack of standing with teammates back in P16, P17 as we're on the lap 10. Leclerc, little Leclerc, we're going to call him for the rest of the season, as his older brother is in F1 and Ferrari. Next up on the chopping block, see what we can do to try to make a move. That's going to be a DNF from Hajar. As you can see, he's crossing over the track. We almost come into contact with him, trying to make a move on Leclerc through those S's, but not quite yet. It's going to be Victor Martins and Hajar, I don't remember his first name, that are out for the sprint today here in Australia, as Leclerc gains a little bit of a gap on us as we make a few mistakes here, as we're nearing the end of the race. So end of lap 10, start of lap 12, we're currently in P6. So 1.4 is the gap between Leclerc and Vershaw. I'm going to look and try to make a move on him one more time later on lap 11. Once again, sector 2. We have the momentum, we're closing in on him, we have the DRS. Leclerc is too far out from Vershaw, so it's going to be an easy move on Leclerc. We just have to hold on to the car for the remainder of the race for a P5 finish. That's a 2-second gap. That's going to be a lot of work for us, but we have made our way from P13 as we kind of baby our tires for the rest of the way. So that's going to be a strong P5 finish here for the sprint in Australia.
Well then, that concludes another excellent race.
Well, sprint races are basic, aren't they? And that's why we like them. Set them all going and let them have at it. And they really showed the racecraft and pace that you need to win them.
And look at that, they're making their way out onto the podium now. Great race from the MP Motorsport team, and I'm very happy to see them up there on the top step of the podium. After all this drama, you'd be mad not to join us for the next race. We hope to see you then. Take care. Delighted to welcome you to Albert Park, the newest addition on the official FIA Formula 2 calendar. The heat is going to be a test for drivers and cars today, ahead of the feature race. It is a remodeled circuit out there, 3.28 miles, 14 turns. It's 5 to the left, 9 to the right, and it is soaking out there. It is incredibly wet. Let's look at the grid order for today's race while the cars make their final preparations. A fantastic effort from Ollie Behrman yesterday puts him on pole position, and it's Jen de Ruvela in P2. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Pourchaire, Verschoor, Arthur Leclerc, Owassa, Vesti, Hadjar, Correa, Dennis Hauger, Boschon, Benavides, Johnson, Roman Stanek, Miney, Novalak, Maloney, Enzo Fittipaldi, Cordial, Nissani, Crawford, and Victor Martins completes the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track. It is the Formula 2 race. It is time to introduce you to Alex Brundle. I'm Alex Jakes, and we've got changeable weather out there today. That's making for some nervous team personnel down in the paddock, down in the pit lane.
There are going to be some quivering hands on the tyre guns, aren't there, when they tighten up what could easily be the wrong specification of tyre completely for the conditions. It's a gamble out there.
All right. Let's keep the momentum going today. I'm confident you can still give it your all, even with the current weather conditions on the track.
The formation lap gets underway for this, the Formula 2 race, and each driver will no doubt be mindful of the wet surface as they prepare to race around the track.
All right, so we're coming up to the grid slot, and I don't know what's going on there with the rain. You see the boxes there for, kind of reminds me of the track acclimation practice program as we're coming up to our grid slot final cars, and a lot more rain as expected. And like I said, still dealing with the wet weather tire compound issue as our 5 red lights are on, and we are off. P13 on a set of soft tires. You can see how much the back end is trying to come out, and we're trying to avoid putting the power down too much because we don't want to crash out early in this race. Sitting in P13 comfortably, not trying to make any sudden moves. We do have an opening on Benavides on the inside, taking a lot of curb, but we're going to baby our way through. You can see all the other cars just slip from Benavides behind us, trying to make a move on us. Here on lap 1, Behrman, Pourchaire, Leclerc is our top 3. Vesti and Boschung fighting for position up ahead. And then I believe that is Hadjar and Ruvela ahead as we go wide. Benavides is taking advantage of that situation where we're it's miserable out here, and we have no other choice but to come in for wet tires, because I know the AI is going to be able to handle the weather with the current situation, because the compound situation has yet to be fixed with the most recent patch, but the driver improvements and mistakes have improved. And you can see we're already 2 seconds back behind Benavidez in P12 as we're locking up. You can hear how much the tires are locking up. Stanek side by side with us, trying to make a move, but that's not going to be an issue for them, because we're going to be coming in at the end of this lap. Let's see how the back end. I'm trying to put the power down. We lose 2 positions there back in P15. And then that is, I believe, Crawford on the inside trying to make a move. But this is just miserable. So I decide here in Sector 3 that we're going to be coming in on the wet tires. I know it's a risk, but I know we're going to have more than one set of wet tires for this race. And there's no sign of us having to deal with a dry race at the end. So slipping there at the end, or at the beginning of the pit entrance, almost slamming into the wall. But we're going to be coming in anyways, and I'll feel a lot better depending on how these wet tires perform. So we're going to be coming in, wet tires on, car is dropped, and we're actually off to an okay pit stop. So yeah, P22, the end of lap 1, wasn't what I expected, but it was kind of inevitable when you see the weather on the way, and I just hope that in later races we do have to we do get to appropriately plan for the rain. As you can see, the back end is still slipping out a little bit as we work on catching up to the grid. It's only lap 22, or lap 2, 22 seconds behind, as we're trying to manage as best as possible. As you can see, there is no dry line as of yet. There are a little bit of tire marks, but there's no driver line yet for us to use. Moving on to lap 4, we're going to actually be on board with Benavidez. As you can see, down at the end of the grid, we're only 7.5 seconds in closing behind the pack. Benavidez, starting lap 5, is going to be making a mistake. You're coming through turn 1, turn 2, and his back end goes wide, putting too much power down. Slides into the grass, no contact into the wall. That's going to be safe enough for him to rejoin the track. And it's just a hope of him getting back on the track before it pulls a safety car. See that we're passing him there now as he turns the car around, and you can see lap 5 now. There is a little bit of a dry patch starting to form for the racing line, and we're going to use that to our advantage. So P21, lap 5. It's still we're about a third of the way through, just under a third of the way through this race. But we have a lot to go, and we're closing that gap. You can see 4.6 already on Novak, who is in P20. So you can still hear the car locking up and doing the best that we can to try to catch up. Lap 5, the end of lap 5, the start of lap 6, so Darubala up in P6 is going to be the next person to have an issue, as he has Vesti and Hadjar behind. You can see we're 2.4 seconds back behind Novalak now, as Darubala is trying to push for that position, and he's gonna have a lockup going into the grass and gravel. So Darubala, unlucky, back in P11, he's gonna be stuck. I don't know if it's gonna be enough for a safety car, or if he's just waiting to get out. See that we're passing there, and that's another free position. That's actually going to be a safety car, full-fledged safety car here on lap 6. That means we're going to be out here for a few laps. I'm on a set of wet tires. I don't know if these drivers are going to swap over to wet tires, because we are the middle of the race weekend was the middle of the split the patch. Like I said earlier, the sprint race was before the patch, and the feature race was after. So we're going to be coming in for a new set of wet tires. I see other people ahead of me coming in, so it's going to be a whole shuffle of the grid probably. It's just a matter of seeing if they put on dry or wet tires. They're going to have ourselves coming in behind our teammate and it looks like they're putting on slick tires, so it's mediums. So that is not fixed yet. Maybe because we are in the middle of a race weekend, it may be fixed the next time we hit rain. But we're going to be coming in and changing to another set of wet tires, which will help with our advantage, even though we're farther back in the grid. You can see Daruva, Benavidez, Novalak all still trying to come through the pits, and we have a rough exit to our pit stop. Once again, we missed the clutch and the gear shift to leave our pit box, so that is another driver error, and hopefully we can get that nailed by the end of the season before we get to F1, because I know it'll be more punishing when we get to F1. But there we are, safety car in the rain, and we're the only person on wet tires, so I don't know how this is going to go, especially with how the difficulty is set, because I know that these cars and these AI can handle the rain before it gets patched. It's just a matter how far up the grid that we can get, as we're waiting for the safety car to come to an end. Lap 9, safety car is coming to an end for a restart. And you can see that we're patiently waiting. Cars are slowing down into the lower gears. Safety car is coming in. Oliver Behrman up in P1 to restart this race. Lap 9 of 17, so we have 9 laps to go. As we're on the restart, the back end tries to kick out a little bit as we're onto a new set of wet tires. And I don't know what, you can see it. I'm seeing it. Novalak. There's the spotting rain, and there's a little bit of a box situation going on with the wet weather. I don't know if that's the game or the settings, but I can see the box around the driver, similar to what the start of the race had, as we're sitting comfortably, trying to get these tires warmed up before we try to make any moves. There's a single file. Nobody out of the race yet. At the end of lap 10, we're going to make a move on Novalak on the inside and try not to come in contact with him, but that's going to be an easy position as we're in the wet part of the track to cool the tires down, even though we don't necessarily need it. And that's going to be somebody in the pits. Who's going to be in the pits? That's going to be Fittipaldi into the pits. I believe that is for a retirement, if not a pit stop. Gaining the position under Rudla, so we're back up into P18. You can hear the tires locking up as we're trying to move up on the Miami. Back end still slipping out, so we're trying to get used to this wet weather racing. Didn't race in the wet weather for the beta, so a little bit of scrubbing there on Miami on the inside as we make a move up into P17. Crawford up in P16 is going to be the next person we try to make a move on. I thought about it there on the outside, but I would have ended up in the wall, so we make a move on the inside this time. You see he's trying to react and avoid any situation. I don't know if there was, it sounded like there was contact from him, but I checked and we didn't have any damage, so he's already back in a second, so he must have came in contact with us. As we're pushing the power down, and next up is Ayuma Iwasa in P15. Lap 11 now, start of lap 12. Back end still slipping out, and we're going to use that toe, you're going to use that dry patch, try to make a move on Iwasa. We move on the inside. Side by side, he brakes early, a little bit of tire contact there. As we're up to P15, and if you actually look, myself, Martins, and Cordial, P15, 14, and 13, all of the Alpine drivers. Don't know if there's any other Alpine drivers on the grid, but we're all here, all together in the same area. So we have to work our way up past Martins on the inside, take opportunity as we have it presented to us. And now it's Cordial, our teammate, ahead of us, that we have to try to pass. So we have the bit of momentum coming through the end of Sector 2, start of Sector 12, or Sector 3, lap 12. Move to the inside of Martins, and he doesn't give way because we have the faster pace. So we have to force our way ahead of him. P13, lap 12 on a lap 13 now. And I believe that's Correa is how you say the name. And I believe that is Hauger, Dennis Hauger, moving to the inside line. That's going to be our first DNF of the race as we have a free position up into P12. Still have to fight Correa for P11. As Hauger is out. I believe Martin's slammed into the back of him as well and is out as well. I don't believe there was any contact when I checked the replay. But P12 behind Correa. And still waiting to see what we can do for the rest of this race. Lap 13, Sector 3, going into Sector 3, trying to make a move on Correa before the start of lap 14. So we're nearing the end of the race as he has a lockup. And that's going to be P11 on the fight for P10 with Nissani as we go to our commentators.
The weekend in Melbourne has been quite an event for our F2 drivers, navigating a very wet track on slick tyres. However, Johnson made a surprising move, pitting on lap 1 for a set of wet tyres.
At the time, it came as a surprise because all the other teams believed there wasn't sufficient rainfall to justify a switch. That's why Johnson remained the sole driver on the track with wet tyres, even after the safety car was deployed, which gave him a free pit stop onto a second set of wet tyres to run the remainder of the race.
You've got to admire these drivers. Despite the worsening weather, they're masterfully managing their cars on the slippery track. Johnson in particular has a tyre grip advantage, which explains his impressive climb up the field after a remarkable catch-up.
I agree that F2's arrival in Melbourne is uncharted territory, and the addition of rain certainly adds an element of intrigue. However, Johnson has a knack for capitalising on any situation, which explains his ascent into the top 10 with just a few laps to go.
It is indeed surprising that most drivers have opted to stay out instead of switching to wet tyres for the majority of the race. As mentioned earlier, Johnson pitted for wets on lap 1 and again during the safety car period, placing him in his own category as he advanced through the field. It wouldn't be surprising to see him reach the podium or perhaps even secure a race win today.
One might assume that given the weather conditions, other drivers would have chosen wet tyres during the safety car period when they all came in for a pit stop. And there could have been complications with tyre allocation this weekend, or perhaps some discrepancies with the weather radar systems, and that's why we see dry tyres on a wet track. Certainly with the experience of today's wet weather conditions, teams and drivers will be better prepared to strategize effectively for a race that is both safe and competitive next time such weather occurs.
Well, we certainly will remember this race, as there have been many like it that had drivers running slicks on a wet track. I can't wait to see who comes out on top.
And as you guys observed up through the commentary, lap 15, end of lap 15, and we skipped the moves against Vesti and Beauchamp for time constraints. We're already up almost towards 30 minutes. So we're moving on to lap 16, the fight against myself and Hajar. We have the momentum, we back off a little bit. We're gonna look through this high-speed curve, or high-speed chicane. We hear a little bit of a lockup there as we hold back and we wait for another move. So we're gonna be moving to the inside, no, outside. Not enough room. He's defending well. We brake late. You hear the lockup. Not really lockups, but scrapes as we're pushing into P5. So we are fighting for podium territory now. As Versure about a second ahead as we're moving on to the final lap. So Versure ahead. P5 is where we're at currently. You see Versure, and then the Leclerc ahead. Versure move to the outside. We brake late, put our tire up against him, force him to move out more, and that's going to be P4 for us. That's going to be a little Leclerc up ahead in P4. I believe P3 actually, sorry. So our final lap and our final chance to get on the podium here in Australia, especially with our decent finish from the sprint race. So we put the power down. We have the tire advantage. It's the end of the race. Almost coming in contact there with the tires. Moving to the outside. You can see how cleared up the track has gotten. The rain has definitely gotten lighter. And now we just defend P3 against little Leclerc. So coming through that high-speed corner, defending the inside so we can't go anywhere. And we sacrifice a little bit of speed there, but we hold on to P3 and we almost had a chance here. against P2. A little bit of damage on our front wing coming around the final corner. That's going to be a strong finish for the podium here in Australia, despite the weather and strategy complications.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for all your hard work out there. That was a really strong drive and a great finish. Well done.
That's a fantastic performance from Prema. It hardly looked in doubt.
Have you seen one quite as dominant as that, Jakesy? I'm not sure I have. They led every single lap of that one, lights to flag.
It looks like it's time for the victory ceremony once again, as I can see the drivers beginning to make their way out for the celebrations. You can see it on their faces. It's another marvellous team win for Prema today. It was great having you with us for this weekend. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you when Formula 2 returns.
And once again, it was a very challenging weekend, as we've said during the safety car. But yeah, very interesting. Still having to deal with the post-patch rain issue. This video is going up a couple days after the patch on that Friday came out for vehicle handling and stuff. It was an improvement. I felt the improvement during the sprint and the replay or feature race, and we knew even with the tire advantage we were going to have a challenge. So yeah, so we're going to go ahead and take a quick look at the standings. We're still 86 points compared to Oliver's 47, so it's a 39-point deficit. Constructors, we are behind Prema by 1 point, so we aren't in the contention for constructors. We're fighting to hold on to the drivers championship here in F2. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and leave it off here, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.